we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast today, which is Cinco de Mayo. Viva la Mexico. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
Happy to be here on a rainy Monday morning. Looks like the drought is over. We missed another one.
Gosh almighty.
But that just means that we are in the start of the next one, as Ron used to say.
That's true. Better wait about 2 more days. It's going to be 2 more days of rain. Two more days of rain.
The drought monitor says we are out of it.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Dunzo. That just means it's the start of the next drought.
Start of the next drought. But it has been, where we were at now compared to 6 weeks ago is an amazing thing. 6 weeks ago, we were very dry.
Just needed that harp to shut down.
So far, it's working. So I told you that a long time ago. If we have normal weather patterns, I'm going to be like really tough on this one. Okay, I want to talk about something from my today, which is May 5th. And this has nothing to do with any of my May 5th stuff, but it is Cinco de Mayo. Do you know what Cinco de Mayo is?
I have no clue.
It's not just an
Excuse to eat tacos?
Nope, not at all.
Tacos and tequila?
Nope. Tony's having some menudo today for breakfast.
Oh, good for him.
Me and Mom found us a Mexican bakery place in Abilene. Alfonso's Hernandez Bakery. Very, very good. Highly recommend. Migas are excellent. But anyways, Cinco de Mayo is an annual celebration held on May 5th to celebrate Mexico's victory over the Second French Empire at the Battle of Puebla in 1862, led by General Ignacio Zaragoza. Zaragoza died months after the battle from an illness, however, and a larger French force ultimately defeated the Mexican army at the Second Battle of Puebla and then occupied Mexico City. Following the end of the American Civil War in 1865, the United States began lending money and guns to the Mexican liberals, pushing France and Mexican conservatives to the edge of defeat. At the opening of the French chambers in January of 1866, Napoleon III announced that he would withdraw French troops from Mexico. So the USA saved Mexico's ass against the French in the 1860s. So anyways, that's my Cinco de Mayo. It's not about mayonnaise sinking on the Titanic or anything. It is all about an actual battle that the Mexicans won. Okay, my person who was born today, I'm not a big fan. You probably love the lady. I know you do. I think she was a housewife from England. It was on The Voice maybe over there that became famous.
Adele?
Yes. Is that right?
I don't know. I don't know. Housewife?
I don't know nothing about her. I just think she
Pretty
came out
sure
of
she
nowhere.
was like 19 when she got started.
Okay. Adele, born May 5th, 1988, is an English singer-songwriter regarded as a British icon. She's known for her mezzo-soprano vocals and sentimental songwriting. Her accolades, she's won 16 Grammys, 12 Brit Awards, I don't know what that is, an Academy Award, a Primetime Emmy Award, and a Golden Globe Award. After graduating from the Brit School in 2006, Adele signed a record deal with XL Recording. Her debut album, 19, was released in 2008.
And she was 19.
And included the UK top 5 singles, Chasing Pavements and Make You Feel My Love. 19 was named as the top 20 best-selling debut albums ever in the UK. She received the Grammy Award for Best New Artist. Adele released her second studio album, 21. Can you imagine if Steven Tyler did this shit? He'd be like 77. Rolling in the Deep, that was the big American hit, right?
And Hello. Rolling in the Deep, Hello.
Okay, well, I know Rolling in the Deep, and that's about the only one I know about.
You know Hello.
I do, okay. Adele was born on May 5th, 1888 in Tottenham, London, to an English mother. Well, that's nice to know. Penny Adkins, and a Welsh father, Mark Evans. There's some racist over there.
Yeah, I don't know why they do a lot of segregation. Well, I do know that.
They haven't done much of it lately because they're invaded by the Mohammedans.
But like they always just say like, "Oh, I'm Welsh," or "I'm from Norfolk," or Irish. It's a big melting pot, but like they make sure to tell you what they are.
Sounds like her dad was a real piece of turd. After Evans left when Adele was 2, she was brought up by her mother. She began singing at age 4.
Probably where she got her angst.
And asserts that she became obsessed with voices. In 1997, 9-year-old Adele and her mother, who by then had found work, it took her 7 years to find a job, who had found work as a furniture maker and an adult learning activities organizer, relocated to Brighton on the south coast of England. In 1999, Adele and her mother moved back to London, first to Brixton, then to a neighboring district of West Norwood in South London, which is the subject of her song, Hometown Glory. So anyways, blah, 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 it's Adele. So anyways, that's who was born this day. My person who, of course, here we go. My person that died today was a gentleman named George Jung. Do you know who George Jung is?
George, is it not Young?
Jung, Jung, or
Pretty sure that's Young.
okay, so it's George Jung then.
Apparently you don't know him either.
I do know him. I just don't know his last name was pronounced wrong. Do you know who he is?
You just call him George?
Who is he?
I don't know. But I don't think his last name is pronounced Jung.
You think it's Young?
Yeah, like Josh Young. They play baseball. Went to Tech. Jung.
Maybe Josh is kidding him. Anyways, he's nicknamed Boston George and El Americano. Was an American drug trafficker and smuggler. He was a major figure in the United States cocaine trade during the 70s and 80s. Young and his partner Carlos Leder smuggled cocaine in the United States for the Colombian Medellin cartel. Young was sentenced to 60 years in prison in 94 on conspiracy charges, but released in 2014. Young was portrayed by Johnny Depp in the biopic Blow. You ever seen that movie with him and Penelope Cruz?
Yeah, but I didn't. I think I'm getting my movies mixed up.
Are you thinking of America? You're thinking of America, the one with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I think I am.
Okay. Blow was with
I saw that.
Johnny Depp. Very good show.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Young was born on August 6, 1942 in Weymouth, Massachusetts to Frederick Young, who owned a small business, and Erminie Young. In high school, Young was a star football player and was described by his classmates as a natural leader, but was charged by an undercover police officer for solicitation of prostitution.
Well,
After graduating high school in 1961, Young briefly attended the University of Southern Mississippi, where he considered studying advertising, but dropped out. Young began recreationally using marijuana and sold a portion of everything he bought to break even. In 1967, after meeting with a childhood friend, Young realized the enormous profit potential represented by smuggling cannabis he brought into California back to New England. Young initially had had his flight attendant girlfriend transport drugs in her suitcases on flights. In search of even greater profits, he expanded his operations to flying the drugs in from Puerto Vallarta, using airplanes stolen from private airports on Cape Cod and professional pilots. At the height of his enterprise, Young and his associates were reportedly making about today's dollars, $2 million a month. That's all in cash. This ended in 1974 when Young was arrested in Chicago for smuggling 660 pounds of marijuana. He'd been staying at the Playboy Club where he was to meet a connection who would pick up the marijuana. The connection was arrested for heroin smuggling. However, he informed the authorities about Young to get a reduced sentence. After arguing the judge about the purpose of sending a man to prison for crossing an imaginary line with a bunch of plants, Young was sent to Federal Corrections Institute. So anyways.
still there today?
No.
No.
At FCI Danbury, where he was in prison, during his marijuana trafficking sentences, Young's cellmate was Carlos Leder, a young German Colombian man who introduced Young to the dominant and powerful international drug trafficking Medellin cartel. In return, Young taught Leder about smuggling. When they were released in 1976, Young and Leder smuggled large quantities of cocaine in the United States by joining forces with Pablo Escobar, and they made millions of dollars. They continued in the U.S. cocaine trade through the early 90s and controlled much of the marijuana trade in New England through the 80s. Young was sentenced in 1994 with 1,750 pounds of cocaine in Topeka, Kansas. He pled guilty to 3 counts of conspiracy and received a 60-year sentence. His sentence was reduced to about 20 years. He testified against his ex-partners. Young was imprisoned in Otisville, New York, before transferring to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then in Anthony, Texas. This was his third term. Young was due to be released in November 2014, but was released early on June 2nd after nearly 20 years. In 2016, he was jailed for violating a supervision, then released to a halfway house in 2017. Young suffered from liver and kidney failure and was receiving hospice care when he died on May 5th, 2021. So anyways, the guy, if you've seen the movie, and you know movies portray things wrong, but they got into the plane deal, they did in Puerto Vallarta, and that's kind of was the start of all the blow stuff. And I think it is, he's probably crossed over into that American, what's that movie with Tom Cruise?
I know what you're talking about with Roger Reeves.
Yeah, Roger Reeves, who we had on the podcast a couple years ago, The Smuggler. They were all
American
connected.
Made, is that what
American
it was?
Made. Where they were flying into
Barry Seal.
Barry Seal flying into Hope, Arkansas, I think.
Right.
And Bill Clinton International Airport there and getting a free CIA way in with big rains coming. But anyways, it was an interesting movie, but the kid started out, argued with the judge, went to jail. He was smart, but he couldn't get out of his own way. But his problem was he was a user. So
you don't get high on your own supply.
Nope. But George Jung was my person that died. Now, my event that took place on this day, it was a grand opening of one of the most famous venues in the United States of America?
Madison Square Garden.
Nope. Close, though. Close. Give you another guess. It's a sister to the Madison Square Garden.
God dang it. I don't know.
The Boston Garden.
Boston Garden.
The Boston Garden was an arena in Boston, Massachusetts, designed by boxing promoter Tex Rickard, who also bought the third iteration of New York's Madison Square Garden. It opened on November 17th, 1928 as the Boston Madison Square Garden, later shortened to just Boston Garden, and outlived its original namesake by 30 years. It was above North Station, a train station which was originally a hub to the Boston and Maine Railroad and is now a hub for MBTA, commuter rail, and Amtrak trains. The Garden hosted home games for the Bruins and the Celtics, as well as rock concerts, amateur sports, boxing, professional wrestling matches, circuses, ice shows. It was also used in an exposition hall for political rallies, such as a speech by John F. Kennedy in November of 1960. Boston Garden was demolished in 98, 3 years after the completion of its successor arena, TD Garden. So, anyways, they got some investors together. They built this place. It started out when they built it, it was just going to be a boxing arena. And they wanted it so close that they said if you sit on the front row, you could feel the sweat from when the guys would get hit, the sweat would fall on you.
Oh, that's what I want.
So they started doing hockey and basketball there. Well, they had the old parquet floor in it. And they said that there's certain places on the floor that the ball would bounce certain ways. And it was a home team advantage.
Right.
In 1985, the Boston Celtics went 41-1. They had 42 home games that year, and they went 41-1. Over a 3-year span, I think they lost 6 games there.
Wow. So some major home court advantage.
And the Bruins, when they played there in hockey, back before the NHL was the NHL, they kind of were grandfathered in, and you don't call it a court, the ice, I guess you'd call it. The rink wasn't up to standard size. It was not as wide as the other rinks were because of it had to fit into that venue.
Right.
They had circus there. They had rock concerts on it. They had a lot of rock concerts they wouldn't let do there. They wouldn't let Kiss play there in the 70s because of the pyrotechnics. They didn't want to burn it down.
Good move on their part.
It was a pretty interesting thing. It was a huge icon as a place. When I was a kid growing up, it was the place, you go watch the Celtics. When it first opened up in 1928, up till 1968, the capacity was 13,000 for basketball. When it closed down in 1995, it was 14. They could only add 1,000 seats. Hockey, they could only add 500 seats over the years. So it just wasn't big enough. Some notable, Rudy Valley played there. Benny Goodman played there. The Beatles played there. James Brown played a show there. Martin Luther the night after Martin Luther King was assassinated, only 2,200 people attended the sold-out show. Elvis Presley performed in Boston only once the Garden, November 10th, 1971, pulling in 16,500 people. The Rolling Stones were scheduled to perform in 72, but 2 of their members were detained by Rhode Island police, fearful that angry Stones fans already in the Garden waiting the show would riot. Mayor Kevin White intervened with the Rhode Island authorities and secured the musicians' release. So basically, let them fuckers out of jail and let them play, or we're going to have a big riot on our hand.
Very true.
The Who, and I never realized this, I guess the Who were big partiers. They weren't allowed to perform there because they gotten into Canada and tore up a bunch of shit in Montreal, so they wouldn't let them play there one time. Led Zeppelin was banned from performing at the Garden after concert fans were allowed in the lobby due to sub-freezing temperatures while waiting for tickets to go on sale. Turn on the generosity of the host, some of the fans rioted, broke into the Garden, and trashed the seating arena. Kiss was banned in 76 because of pyrotechnics. Pink Floyd was the first band to perform at the Boston Garden with a stage set that cost over $1 million. The Grateful Dead performed at the Boston Garden more times than any other band with 24 performances. Everybody, I was never a Grateful Dead fan, but they say they were awesome concerts to go to.
Yeah, I don't really enjoy their music.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Detroit rocker Bob Seger recorded a bulk of his double live album, 9 Nights, at the Boston Garden in 1980. The J. Giles Band recorded most of their November 75 show at the Boston Garden for their 76 double live album, Blow Your Face Out. Hometown bound Aerosmith played at the Boston Garden 10 times from 75 to 95 and twice played New Year's shows there, ringing in the 90 and 94 New Year's. I would like to see Aerosmith there. Other acts that performed at the Garden include Pavarotti, Frank Sinatra, Liberace, Duke Ellington, Judy Garland, Arthur Field of the Boston Pops, U2, Bruce Springsteen, Guns N' Roses, Nine Inch Nails, Tom Petty, Grace Slick, with Jefferson Airplane, Jethro Tull, who had 15 headline performances there, Bob Dylan, Diana Ross and the Supremes, the Jackson 5, Queen, Rush, Styx, and George Burns, and Gracie Allen, among others. So anyways, that was the Boston Garden, one of the most famous and iconic venues for sporting events and music years through the years. And it was imploded, and now we have the TD Garden.
TD Gardens.
Which is right there by the USS Constitution. Boston's a cool town. You go there. I'll be there again in a couple of months. Love that place.
No place like it. All right, that is Cinco de Mayo.
Viva la Mexico.
Enjoy your tequila tonight.
Oh, have a margarita.
Ugh.
At least it makes it go farther. You don't like margaritas?
No, I don't. I like high quality tequila, and they always put like Cuervo in it.
You can get some with high quality. Make your own.